All right, good evening all. Today is March 5th, 2024. We are here for our regularly scheduled planning board meeting. Joined by our board members. I'm Chris Ellis, Vanessa Gilliard, Martin Hall, Sean Kennedy. Good to see our planning director and his team here and ready to go, and of course our council to keep us all in line and on track, make sure we uphold the law. I'm very excited for those folks that are here from the public to comment, and we shall move through our 4 agenda items expeditiously but thoroughly. So without any objection, planning board, do we adopt the agenda as presented and shared and in order by staff? Are there any issues with the agenda? All right, so by consent, that agenda is proper. Now all I need to do is pull it up. These in order. Is our first one 199 large. All right, I'll go off the planning memos. The first project, 00575, conditional use permit for 199 Larkin Street. Our request is for determination of significance for seeker. Applicant Aaron Wilson and Nicholas Warchall. Did I say that right? What's Nicholas?
Warchall, yeah.
Warchall. Thank you. Looking to improve a 3-story, 3,946 square foot building that occupies 0.04 acre site. If you would like to approach the seat and present, we'll listen and move through. Welcome. In terms of presentation, 6 minutes? 10, 6 for electeds, 3 for community. They will advance the slides, just let them know, and we'll move through it quickly. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, just to clarify, the building has been renovated. This is just for the first floor. We have rented it from our landlord. That's the spot right there. Yeah, that's the building. He did a good job, kept up with historical standards for renovating the property. That first forest place there, that's the spot that we've rented and we've been working on. And it's right there on Larch Street. And our hope is to put in a bar. I called it a tavern in the application because I'm sticking with the SLA standards of what a tavern is, which is there's food. You can call it a restaurant if you'd like. I have food menus on me today if anyone wants to look at them. But it is a craft cocktail bar with artisanal food, craft beers. And I think what makes it a little bit different is that this is, I think in Albany, its first hopeful listening bar. A listening bar is something that was started in Japan in the 1930s when Western music was banned. And you know, you have cocktails, you have food, but you listen to records, 33s, 45s, vinyl records, and it's a very cozy, elevated atmosphere, and yeah, that's essentially the concept. It's nothing crazy. We spent a lot of money on our audio equipment, but that doesn't mean volume, that means quality of music. We're also gonna put a lot of money into the acoustics treatments of the space. You know, I understand, I used to live on Lark Street, I know what it's like. We're not here to cause a disturbance. So we'll be putting in soundproofing. And yeah, that's essentially it. There's a floor plan, you can see the bar, about 14 bar stools. There's the entrance there, up to the right. The little half circles are booths. You can fit about 3, maybe 4 people around the booths. There's 2 restrooms, one's ADA compliant. There's a back room. We do have a stage back there. The back door, which is really more of an emergency back door, it needed a step up. It wasn't up to code, and I was like, well, let's make it a stage. And I put that in the application, not to make the assumption that this is a music venue. It's a very small stage. Maybe 2-3 people. What we're trying to do here is harken back to the Larkin that used to exist in the same exact spot almost 20 years ago. That did have live music. They had a great little baby grand piano there. We don't have one of those, but I don't think we could fit one. But it's kind of this, it's a similar idea. I would love to have live music on occasion. But what it really means is that the bartender is putting on a record, and they're gonna let that play while they make you a drink.
Any additional slides? Okay. Got you. Any more slides? All right. We'll get into the public comment piece. Want to remind folks that please state your name, your address, and if the person before you has captured your sentiments to please indicate that. We do not need to hear a repetitive statement. We understand. So at this point, let's start with William Pettit for the first set of comments. Thank you.
Thanks.
And should we have any additional questions after we hear, we'll do all of our comments all at once. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. My name is William Pettit. I'm president of the Washington Park Neighborhood Association, and I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the board of directors of the Washington Park Neighborhood Association. Our boundary is shared with the applicant right there. The Washington Park Neighborhood Association, whose boundary is shared with the applicant, is in opposition to this application based on multiple points, 3 of which are outlined here. Firstly, buried in the application is a request to occupy the alley for outdoor seating. There are many reasons this is a non-starter. By the applicant's own description, they want the seating area to be up to abut the rear wall of 355 State Street. These are people's apartments. All are bedroom windows. There are about 10 apartments or so. This seating area would qualify as a nuisance to the neighbors. Additionally, this is a city-owned fire alley and needs to be at least quickly accessible to emergency services. Some accommodation has previously been made to the storage of the Poke restaurant's trash. We're curious as to what the plan for that will be. We request that the city provide assurances that the alley will never be used by the applicant for anything, seating, trash, etc. And the trash situation with the Poke restaurant be resolved. Secondly, this application is a change of use proposal and is problematic. The building has been unoccupied for decades and therefore before it was previously a bar and restaurant. The bar and tavern is a different use. The like establishments cited in the application are all, with one exception, blocks to the south, and therefore this is an apples and oranges difference. These establishments are in areas that are not as dense with apartments. The applicant admits that in the application this establishment will be noisy. So introduction of a tavern into the space that was quiet for 20 years is a drastic change and will impact negatively the vibe of the neighborhood. For the venue to have amplified music, whether it's bands, DJ, or vinyl, the association feels that the applicant would need a cabaret license from the city clerk. We request that this application for the cabaret license be denied or granted before this application is reviewed. And the third and final issue needs to be discussed are the apartments in the building at 199 Lark Street, second and third floor. These are either long-term or short-term rentals having tavern noise in the building, wherever it is, whatever it is, and people smoking outside and talking will impact the rentability of those apartments. Thank you for your consideration, and it is the opinion of the Washington Park Neighborhood Association, Inc. that this application should be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine? Educate me, how do you say your last name?
LePay.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm Christine LePay. I am a resident at 355 State Street. I am a unit owner there. I own unit 4WF. I have lived at 355 State Street for the last 16 years, and I would welcome certainly something happening to this abandoned building. I think that would be a great idea. However, I do have many concerns because of the idea that they might be using or expecting to be used the alleyway that's between 199 and our building for outdoor use of their clientele. Certainly, it's a very small alleyway. It's a public egress and an emergency egress for the people in our building. It would definitely mean that their clientele would be sitting right outside people's bedroom windows. And certainly the noise, not necessarily of the music inside, but of the people who are out talking to each other at their tables, etc., would impact those of us who live in that building. I think privacy is one of our main concerns. Cleanup would be another concern. Everyone knows outdoor spaces mean smoking and empty cups, that kind of thing around. So who would be involved in cleaning this up on a daily or nightly, I guess, basis so that it didn't accumulate and make a mess back there? No one from inside that establishment would be able to actually see what was going on out in that alleyway, if that's how they're planning on using that alleyway. This is unclear to us all, but the rumor is that that's what they're planning. I think we need to know what they plan for this 410 square feet of outdoor space they're asking about, okay? I think that it also is a safety issue for the people in our building because our back door to our basement is in that alley, and anyone who had access to that alley could possibly have easy access to getting inside our building, and that's a real safety issue for us, okay? Who would be liable for any damage to our building or any unauthorized access to our building? That's a question that I would like to bring up. I do think that opening a business there would be better than the abandoned wreck that it's been for ever since I moved in 16 years ago. But it's too close to the private living quarters of the tax-paying citizens who live at 355 State Street. So in conclusion, I think we need to think about the disturbance of the peace of the people who live in the building, the invasion of their privacy by being so close to especially the first floor and basement apartments in that building. The safety issues raised by that alleyway being possibly not able, not accessed easily if in an emergency, and the undefined control over that area. Please take these things into consideration. Another thing I'd like to point out to this board is that many people in our building did not get notice of this meeting, and I don't know why. I, for one, did not get notice. I heard of it through other people, and I think we all should have been told. Thank you very much.
Patricia?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, yes, I'm Patricia Morrison. I also live at 355 State Street, apartment 4EF. I am going to I agree with all prior comments, so I'm not gonna reiterate them. I first wanna thank you for the work that you do on the board, because I have served on boards and I understand all that goes into it, so I thank you for your consideration this evening. And I also do thank the owner of the building, reading this application, understanding that this building, I'm new to the neighborhood, but understanding that this building was vacant for many years and has been renovated, is a positive in the right direction. So I really do appreciate that. I'm really here about 3 points: quality of life, the applicant's past performance, which has not been touched on this evening, and the safety. It is unclear. I do agree with the chief planning official's recommendation in the notes this evening to defer this based on item number 3. It is a question to everybody, I think, maybe even to you, whether or not there's going to be use of the outside area that was not described by the applicant when they presented. So it's still unclear. According to the conditional use application, there was a mention of outdoor usage. I touch on the fact that this particular applicant has had a repeated of violations. They were enumerated in the comments, the written comments, so I'm not gonna review those, but I think the gentleman, Mark Smith, who left you a voicemail, who rented to this applicant, and ended that lease last year, I believe, did so because of disregard for noise. It is very concerning to me that this applicant has been showing disregard for the egress with things against the building that I live in, the exit door, and which was actually used in the fire that we suffered 2 years ago to get out, and so that is of a concern. So, and if the outside area is in consideration, I would ask that there'd be no use in the outside area for all the reasons that have already been stated. So it comes down to quality of life for those that live in the building, includes the applicant's past performance, which they have many violations, and they actually ended their agreement and got out of an agreement last year because they were not following a noise, I guess they were very noisy. I wasn't here at the time, but I guess they were very noisy, and Mark Smith basically said good riddance, and the safety factor. They've already proven that they don't follow the rules, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, my name is Mark Smith. And I don't have I just have a few bullet points that I just wanna make sure that I bring up. And I've already gonna change that because, I agree with these people. And, I suppose everyone did read or hear the, recorded message that I left. I'm assuming everyone heard that. But anyway, I can, I know the people, I know Aaron Wilson, and I definitely know Nick Warhol. It's actually 5 years ago we signed a lease. So and then 6 months ago, we ended it October 2nd. So Nick was in there for 4.5 years. 4.5 years. And the first 3 years, or the first 3 years, it was referred, the name was Host. And everything worked out well. We had some issues with some plumbing, and I addressed that. And as a matter of fact, I did some major work in there. I had some major work done. And then and that was named Host. And then things changed. In May of 2022, they changed the name to Lo-Fi, and they also changed the format. And so what did they do? They put in a jukebox that Nick, that he got from his parents. And then he put in amplified speakers. And I remember being down there, and it was a sunny day, and I remember the electrician's name was Frank, and he had speakers about this big. And I said, speakers? I mean, the jukebox, I know, I was questioning that, but speakers? And Nick said, we'll just control the volume. Okay, fine, if you control it. And I just shook my head, okay. Well, that's when the nightmare, it was a nightmare started. He had the jukebox, he had amplified speakers, and occasionally they had DJs in there. They had DJs. And they had the speakers inside the building, and they had also along Spring Street, he actually had a speaker there for a while. And then he had it outdoor in the rear patio area. And I live on the second floor, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it wasn't too bad. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it was a nightmare. I don't know anyone who wants to watch TV hearing a thumping beat, or if you want to read a book or a magazine, that kind of, it was aggravating. And it's basically an apartment building, essentially. And I started the building there over 20 years ago. Anyway, the other issue is the outdoor seating. That's the big question there for the people. I believe it's 355 State Street is the name, is the address. Well, he abused that. I don't even think he had a cafe permit, but he had no barrier there. And then he didn't have any folded chairs. You're supposed to fold the chairs for a cafe permit. Fold the chairs, lock it up, and put it up against the wall. He did none of that. He had one chair and double chairs, and it was just a mess. And people out
Mr.
there.
Smith, you've exceeded your 3
Oh, I'm
minutes. I
sorry.
just wanted to,
So,
in summation,
summation, I agree with, I think the major issue is gonna be the outdoor seating there, but to finish with the music, they abused the music situation at 200 Lark Street, definitely abused it. And they're talking about putting a stage in there and music. This is my side of it, it's gonna be a nightmare if you allow them to have inside music. If it's just, and spinning records, that's what I had to put up with at 200 Lark Street.
thank you very much.
Thank you now, appreciate it.
Christopher Lee.
I'm here on behalf of Christopher Lee, who is not available. Is that
Do you have written-
acceptable?
Do you have written statement?
I do. I do have the same item that's up there on the list of written comments as well.
We're trying to hold to our protocols for presentation. If you have written, we will certainly accept that.
Okay,
However, if you have things that you want to present on your behalf,
okay,
we want to be as open and accommodating to anybody that took the time to come out to today's meeting. So
okay.
I prefer you not read someone else's written
Okay.
statement as
All
opposed
right, I was
to
just asking.
provide your own comments.
Okay, thank you.
If you wanna leave the comments with, the paper with us, but I'm assuming it's the same, it's in the written comments that's in our folder already?
Yes, you get
Okay,
this.
thank you very much.
Okay.
Jenny?
I don't think she's here.
Okay,
Yeah, no.
I can't go. Your name is on. Your name, no, but I.
Okay.
please, if you have something to offer and you signed up, speak your piece.
Actually, I didn't sign up, Christopher
Okay.
Lee signed me up.
Okay, understood.
Got it.
We'll put
Really
a
was.
X2 on the written statement from Christopher Lee and say you concur. I appreciate that. Eileen?
Yes, that's.
You're Eileen, okay. Mark. Jenny's not here, let's make sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
Danny's not here.
Okay, Mark?
No, he's not here.
Rebecca? All right. Anybody else on 199 Lark? Please come forward.
I didn't sign up.
That's okay. That's okay.
And thank you for giving me this opportunity. My name is Ron. I'm the building owner of 199 Lock Street. We signed the lease with Nick. I don't remember the last name.
Nick and Aaron?
Okay, I signed the lease with them with the understanding he has a business across the street and he wants to have a bigger space in our first floor. So we say that should be fine, okay? But as far as the specific application, outdoor use or whatever, I have no idea. What we did was we inject like $500,000 in this historic building. And according to my partners and contractors, all the neighbors gave us a thumbs up. You guys did a good job to restore abandoned for many, many years. And we went through about 2 years going through the historic preserve committee and going through the building department. And we paid every attention to make this a beautiful building. We certainly don't want anybody to ruin it by having the noise which is disturbing to the neighborhood. We want to have the good business. We want to have everybody like it, like they like what we did to the building. My understanding, this is a zone for business, so we check with the building department, restaurant, bar is allowed. That's why we signed the lease, okay? We are doing everything according to the zoning requirements. And as far as that alleyway, I just want to say there's a gate with a lock. We did not put it there. It was there before. I don't know who put it, either next door building or previous owner. We did not put it. We don't intend to put it there. It's public, that's owned by the city. That's the city property. We don't have no right to lock it. So we have no problem to open it up for the safety reason, for the fire, or anything. So we just want to have peace with all the neighbors. Everybody happy, that's all. So that's our position, and that's what we did.
For the record again, what was your name?
Ron,
Last name?
Xiong, Sean.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we want to make this a beautiful building, a beautiful street,
I have a
beautiful
quick
neighborhood.
question
That's-
for him.
Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Sean.
Yes,
You mentioned the gate, because I'm looking at it online, and I do see the gate. You said you don't have control over it. Do you have the lock to it? Who has the lock to,
no, I didn't say I have no control.
okay,
We did not put it,
right, I
we have
understand.
no objection to keep it or to take it off. We didn't put it, we have no intention to leave it there.
But you have the key, because you said it's locked, so you have the key to open it? Who
I
has the key?
believe my partner has a key.
Oh, okay, so somebody has a key.
Somebody has a key. the neighboring building and, you know, we have a key, yes.
Okay, so keys in existence, alright, thank you.
Alright, so what I would like to do now
Thank you.
is, we've heard the whole lot. We'll open it up to the board for questions to anyone that has spoken, but I would hope that we will focus the largest of our questions on the applicant. So if the applicant can return back.
Does it make sense to go back to the plans?
Sure, yes,
Go back to the phone.
to the plans. First question, rather rudimentary but necessary. Have there been any sort of formal sit downs between you, say the owner, and or the neighborhood association or the neighbors to discuss the plans and any of their concerns prior to hearing them at tonight's meeting?
No, not yet. I would be incredibly open to doing it. To be honest with you, because the Larkin used to be there, I thought this wouldn't be such a thing, but I totally understand what people are saying, especially about the alley. So yeah, we'd love to talk to you.
And the issue with the alley, it keeps getting brought up, it was really just us posing the question of whether or not it was accessible to us, not us stating our intention to use the alley. And I think it's really important that everybody understand that, and I think that that's getting blown really out of proportion, and everybody's using that as the sticking point of why we're not showing respect to the neighbors, but in reality, we just weren't sure about it because it was this space that I'd been on Lark Street living there, I owned a home off of Lark Street, and I had seen that alley being utilized for garbage, storage, all these other things for the last 30 years. So because of that, I assumed that it was kind of fair game possibly. So that was why I just inquired about possible usage of the alley, but now hearing those concerns, I have no intention of using the alley. And I think that I just wanna make that clear so that people don't think that it's our intention to cause a disturbance to the people of 355 State Street, who we have utmost respect for. And I know Eileen was my former landlord, and she's known me 15 years, or 10 years or something, and I was a great tenant there, and we kept in touch all this time. And I think that it's just it's important to note that it's not our desire, it's not our intent to use it, it was just a question.
Yeah, it's a nice idea because the few nice months that we have, people love to have a cocktail outside, but if it's not possible, it's not possible.
Understood. Thinking about our tenure on the board, maybe at 4, possibly 5 years, and I can say I've seen this before, and each time there's a project that needs discussions, whether it be simple discussions, complex discussions, or aggressive discussions, it's always preferable to have them before we get here, such that we can understand the tenor. Our ears are a bit trained to understand when things are coming out for the first time and they need to work their way through. But I would certainly encourage you to set up a formal meeting with the neighborhood association and any of the folks in the area so that they can express how they feel. You can express how you feel, and then
Sure.
there's
Yeah.
probably some place that folks.
It's being set up for next week. We don't have an exact date or time yet, but yeah.
And cause some of this stuff is based on a little bit of misinformation just about what the plan was, the rumor mill, people are going into this space, they're doing something there, and then all of a sudden, people start jumping to conclusions about what things are going to be without having the actual discussion with us. And even Mark himself had said that he liked the experience with Post, but when it became, right, and then it became, right, and then
With the music,
Hold
with
on,
the
hold
music.
on.
sure,
Yo,
and then it
we're not
became
doing
lo-fi.
between us and them.
And then it
Talk to the
became
board.
lo-fi, and then he was unhappy with that experience. Well, our actual intent is to actually make this more similar to what it was at Post, where, we tried the thing at lo-fi, right, and we didn't like it. It didn't work for us, and we're trying to create a space that is accessible to the community, that the people will enjoy, and that will represent the vibe of that neighborhood. And I think that the intent is not for it to be rowdy, it's for it to be upscale and low key. And I think that even Mark himself would probably enjoy that experience. But just because he had an experience with an attempt at a business that had failed, right? He holds that opinion, and but I think that, you know, if people saw that it was more similar to the previous business, which actually most people felt was good for the neighborhood, I think that that would be a different opinion, so.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So I really like the building from your project, it's great. I think it's an excellent project and what an amenity to have a building revitalized and to be lived in and to be used. So kudos to you. So a couple questions in terms of just general, some of the plans that I read and then you're talking. So in your perspective, you mentioned that it was a tavern, which food is being served. Where's your kitchen? Where is it?
It's very small, it's behind the bar, it is, you kind of see where it cuts in a little bit to the left to the bathroom. That whole section over there
In
is
the
the
back.
kitchen, yeah.
Okay. So it's like light foods.
And it's like, if you've ever been to Delaware Supply,
Mhm.
it's a very similar food concept to Delaware
So
Supply.
like cheese boards.
Like some small
Yeah,
plates, some
sandwiches.
sandwiches,
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
So that was my first question. The other question is, you mentioned you'd be soundproofing for the occasions that you would be having music. What does that entail in terms of decibels?
We'll have to check that, it's very expensive, but it's not just for the neighborhood, it's also for us.
Yeah.
These acoustic treatments will make the inside, just
Sure.
the music play, it'll sound so good with these acoustic treatments, but bonus, it will also help with the noise concerns, which I totally get. But yeah, we'll have to run some tests on that and check it. I personally don't like to be at a bar where I have to shout to the person sitting right next to me.
Yeah.
That's not the intent here, but we do want you to hear, you know, Bob Dylan on the record player, so.
And what about trash pickup? You said you have two days a week of trash pickup on the application?
We did prior, but we don't,
did.
I mean, currently, we're not
Not
an
sure.
operational business, so that's not even a thing that's like,
Oh, does that
that has to be set up,
That
yeah.
has to be set up.
Mhm.
Where would you store the bins? In the alleyway?
So on this drawing here, we have it in the alleyway.
Because that's where everyone else's
yeah.
bins have always been, but I'm sure that something else can be.
I'm not sure what else we would do, there's like, I don't know, but we can, I understand the concern about the trash and we'll look into it, but,
Just trash bins in general. Like,
sure, yeah.
In terms of how they're stored, where they're put, if they're brought in the evenings. As it is, there is an abundance of trash in many places, but as a business owner and a homeowner, you wanna make sure you
For sure.
regulate that.
No, we hear that for sure.
Okay, and then are there any food deliveries? Are there any deliveries? What are your expected delivery times and where
Yeah.
would they?
I think they have a slide on that one.
Can I see it?
Do we?
I didn't see it, I
There is
just
a
saw it
slide.
mentioned.
So, a liquor delivery will come once a week and then, our food distributor comes on a different day of the week, so I put down twice a week because it's two separate people.
Yeah,
They're pretty quick, they pull up on Lark Street, as how we did it before.
on the across the street.
When it was posed, yeah.
Yeah, they unload quick and then they're off, yeah.
One thing I like a lot is that there is accessible parking and your option of utilizing within the neighborhood. There's a parking lot on Washington Avenue that's accessible. It's close to the bus stations. I think those are really great things and promoting neighborhood usage and working with your neighbors.
Yep.
To hear them out on some of their concerns. I wanna reiterate what Chris said, to reach out to your community members prior to getting here, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Shirley.
Yeah.
Martin, Glenissa, anything?
I think my only thought, what we've already talked about is, well, actually, is to talk about something again, and just confirm that you have no intention of using the alleyway, or at least no application.
No intention to use the alleyway,
When I filled out this application, I just put in like my wish list.
Yeah.
You know, so,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and now, like, after hearing the community's concerns about it, we're in full agreement about all of those things. And like I said, we're not trying to create a safety hazard or any sort of safety concern or noise concern for any of the tenants of the adjacent buildings. So, and we hear all those things and are in agreement.
And one more question is the amplified music, it wasn't quite clear to me, you said that it might happen, it might not happen, and obviously the cabaret license was for you to play there, right?
Yeah, so we would have to get one, obviously. It's another thing where, to me, the primary focus is at the bar, there will be a turntable.
Yeah.
And it's the bartender or a guest, really anyone, could come and put on a vinyl record. To me, that's the focus.
Sure.
It would be great every once in a while, similar to harken back to the Larkin, to have someone do an acoustic night on
Maybe
the
play
stage.
piano, yeah, like how they did at the Larkin, you know, cause a lot of this is supposed to it's supposed to be like a new version of a past idea, right? So everybody talked about the Larkin and everybody remembered it so fondly, and when we were going to this space, we wanted our concept set to pay homage to that prior concept, right? So that's why a lot of it is themed around music, and then all of a sudden music became this like sticking point where people are not liking that aspect of it, but it really was the thing that people talked about that they liked about the space the most, so it kind of was a mixed message for us. But it really is like, you know, we could put a little piano in there, have somebody play piano and like, you know, just, it's supposed to be vibey, you know, it's not gonna be like heavy metal night, like let's, you know, it's gonna be like vibey jazz, you know.
And the difference with the Larkin, did people live in the Larkin above it? I thought it was just.
It used to be 2 floors of, so and
Of Larkin.
then the third floor. So the second floor is actually where music was, yeah.
That's just something to be considered.
Yeah,
People
and
who live in the building.
Yes, and Ron has, you know, we've been completely transparent with Ron about the concept from day one.
Yeah.
He has been transparent with his tenants
Good.
about it as well, so everybody in that building is on the same page about what they're signing up for and about what we're doing. So there's not gonna be any confusion there about what the.
But I did list a noise down on the application because restaurants are loud.
People talk,
Hopefully
and
you
then
put a
there's
lot
a-
of people in there and they try to talk over each other and they can be a little loud. So it will be a challenge for us, but I just wanted to be transparent with the board and everybody, so.
And we'll make our best effort to minimize that noise and to make sure that no one is affected negatively.
Martin, hold on, Shawty, any more?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Martin, you good?
I'm done.
Vanessa? Alright. Staff, Avi, you guys got anything? Oh, this is yours, okay.
Just a few things to reiterate, a lot of it has been talked about already. The project is classified as a type 2 action, so no seeker determination of significance is required. The project will be going in front of the Albany County Planning Board. They will make a decision and only then we can make a decision here at the Planning Board. We expect them to be at the March 21st meeting. Just to address parking, the lot contains less than 5,000 square feet of gross site area, so the parking requirements, they're exempt from the requirements. Any signage would require a separate permit to be submitted. The application that was submitted included 3 employees, included 6 employees, the presentation included 3, just a clarification on that, it's the number of employees.
One of the forms has said how many people on staff at a given time, that's 3.
Gotcha.
Like physically present working, but the staff would be comprised of 6 humans, yeah.
Understood. And then there was a number of 192 for maximum occupancy, wondering where you arrive at that number from?
We drew it up and we drafted it up and ran the calculation. I work for an architecture firm, so we do this every single day.
Okay. The district, the MUNC district allows for any use that has food, beverage and consumption to operate not before 5 AM and not after 2 AM. The bar or tavern use that is in front of us would have to comply with those stated hours. If the We talked about soundproofing, or any efforts made for, to consider the harmful effects of any sound or noise, so we've talked about that. The clarification to be provided as to any agreement that you might enter with the city regarding the common alley, the usage of it for trash, refuse, recycle, and what the delivery schedule is going to be. Also, if a revocable street privilege permit is being submitted for any outside seating for the restaurant, we just have to consider whether that should be in conjunction with this application, and if you could update the application to sort of state where you would like that seating, or where you would be proposing it when time comes.
Sure.
Albie, if you have anything additional?
Good. Well, we thank you for your presentation. We're deferring any action on this project tonight. Thank you for presenting. Thank you to all that came out to A, listen, and B, comment and share your concerns and or comments. We appreciate the public process. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, on this project?
Yeah.
Were you looking to speak on 199?
Yeah, I registered and we got lost and yes, I did. And I will be the most affected, actually. My apartment is literally the most affected by this situation.
Absolutely. So have you provided written?
I just registered to provide public commentary. She's on
the list, she was
I'm on the list, yeah.
We're not doing any action on the project today. I would encourage two things. A, one, submit a written comment. Two, we know that you'll be back the next time that we're here to submit your written comment as quickly and as early as possible so that we can all review. Planning staff is here and ready. Certainly not meaning to skip over you, but we have moved on to 64 Colvin. And we look forward to your attendance and comments at when this is next on the agenda.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
Is public comment still open? That means public comment is still open on this?
For,
On 199?
absolutely.
Okay, alright, thank you.
'64 Colvin.
We're back. Thank you, Dan Hertzberg from Hertzberg and Hertzberg, and with me is Andy Brick from the Brick Law Firm, who representing the applicant, Fleeting Springs Albany LLC. Tonight, the discussion in our PowerPoint is limited to the issue of granting a waiver from the portion of the code that says the primary pedestrian entrance should be on Main Street. So I'm going to turn this over to Andy Brick, who puts together these papers better than I do.
So as you recall, last month, we went through the standards in the code of the test to obtain a variance. I wouldn't go through it again, but we can answer any questions that you may have thought of since then. It is part of the record. We are requesting a waiver from the 375-475B requirement that the primary pedestrian entrance face a public street. And we're proposing that it face Anthony Street, which the city has determined is not a public street, it's an access to the park, so it's part of the park. So we do require a waiver as a result of that. So again, I'm not gonna reiterate what we said last month, nothing has changed except as we go through the slides, you'll see that we did provide some renderings of what it would look like as you approach, as well as our landscape architect has submitted an initial landscape plan, so you can get a sense of how it's gonna look landscape-wise as you approach it as well. So we'll answer any questions regarding that. I do wanna briefly touch upon Councilman Clark's letter, which I believe is part of the record. I received a copy of that, and I think for the record, it's very important that I address it. He, on behalf of, I'm not sure, either himself or the neighborhood association, he remains opposed to this project. He submitted a 3-page letter where he is opposing the waiver. He misrepresents what the purpose and intent of design standards are on page 2 of his letter. I will briefly go through what the purpose and intent of the design standards are, so we have it on the record, so we have the correct statement. 374-407, 1. The purpose of these standards is to, 1, ensure that new construction, significant expansions of existing buildings contribute to and improve the visual quality of the city. We believe our construction does improve the visual quality of the city. It's, as you'll see from the rendering, it's a beautiful building. It's going to improve the visual quality of what is currently a vacant lot. B, encourage further investment in the city by reducing the risk of low-quality development on adjacent parcels. I'm not quite sure what that really means, but there is no risk of low-quality development on adjacent parcels because all parcels, the parcel to our north is the Armory Building, which is developed as a self-storage facility. Our parcel to the west is a hill. It's not going to be developed. On the other side of that hill is a park. To the south of us, again, is the park, is the Anthony Street, the Westland Hills Park entrance. So that's not going to be developed. And we're proposing to the east of us a new commercial structure which fronts along Colvin Avenue and has a primary pedestrian entrance along Colvin Avenue, which is high-quality development. It's not low-quality development. So nothing we're doing is creating a risk of low-quality development on adjacent parcels. Now, in Hyde's letter, he doesn't include the third purpose enumerated in 375-407, but it's vitally important, and I want to read it to you so you have it. The third purpose of the design standards is to create a more pedestrian-friendly street environment to encourage walking, energy conservation, and public health. I don't know why it was left out of his letter, but clearly we are proposing a pedestrian access directly to the park, which is extremely pedestrian-friendly street environment, which will clearly encourage walking. Energy conservation, anytime you're out of the car and you're walking, we're conserving energy, and public health. Exercise is good public health. So I did want to point out that that's an integral component of the design standard intent, and we meet it. It wasn't included in the councilman's letter. But I don't want to stop at what the purpose and intent of design standards are. I just read them to you. But let's not stop there. Let's go all the way through it. Where do the design standards come from? The design standards come from the USDO, the Unified Sustainable Development Ordinance. What are the purposes of the USDO? The USDO is adopted in order to, 1, implement the policies of the comprehensive plan as may be amended from time to time. 2, promote economic reinvestment in the city. 3, protect, preserve, and improve the city's neighborhoods and promote racial and ethnic equity throughout. 4, promote energy conservation, low-impact development, and environmentally sensitive development. 5, ensure safety from fire, floodwaters, panic, and other dangers. 6, facilitate the provision of adequate transportation, water, sanitary and storm sewers, schools, parks, and other community facilities needed to serve new and existing development. 7, promote, preserve, and reinforce the historic urban form and fabric of the city. 8, promote, preserve, encourage, and improve the aesthetic quality of buildings and environments throughout the city. And 9, promote the public health, safety, and welfare. We believe our project meets all of those, some more than the others. In the interest of time, I will only focus on the first. The first purpose of the USDO is to implement the policies of the adopted comprehensive plan. So, the comprehensive plan, the Albany 2030 plan, I'll read to you right from the plan. Creating self-livable, mixed-use, and mixed-income neighborhoods emerged from the Albany 2030 visioning process as the top community priority. The quality of Albany's neighborhoods vary from stable to needing reinvestment as measured by vacancy rate, poverty status, and home ownership rate. Key housing and neighborhood system components include housing, diversity, and choice, neighborhood identity, and neighborhood services. in the housing and neighborhood section, that the overall vision statement for housing diversity and choice. Retaining current and attracting new residents to Albany depends on the availability of quality housing choices that meets the needs of residents at different income levels and at different stages in their life cycles. A diverse housing stock will allow residents to continue to live in Albany as their needs change and will also make the city more competitive in the regional housing market. The goals, the articulated goals of the housing section provide a range of decent, affordable housing choices, densities, ownership opportunities, and price ranges to accommodate the housing needs of existing and new residents. Maintain the supply of quality, affordable housing while encouraging mixed income neighborhoods. There are about 8 more sections of the housing section from the comp plan that is dead on our project. I won't go through it, but I would refer you to the Albany 2030 Comprehensive Plan, Section 3.6, Housing and Neighborhoods, to read for yourself. We clearly meet the intent of the comp plan, which is the purpose of the USDO, where the design standards come from, and we meet the design standard purposes. Lastly, I want to remind everybody that Councilman Clark, this time last year, sponsored legislation to change the zoning of this property. This property was zoned and then changed, which significantly and drastically reduced the size and scope of our project. There was an argument made that the zoning was an attempt to thwart this project. Well, my clients adjusted to the new zoning. They never complained about it. They actually sent me to the city council to support the new zoning that Councilman Clark proposed. And we have designed a project that meets the new zoning. So to sum up, when looking at all the intents and purposes, let's look at the articulated intent of the new zoning, mixed-use neighborhood center. This is what Councilman Clark changed this property to. The purpose of the MUNC district is to provide for moderate density housing options amongst a nexus of locally oriented neighborhood scale commercial uses, providing support services to the surrounding residential neighborhoods. Land uses include a variety of predominantly non-destination and non-auto oriented retail and commercial establishments, as well as complementary residential uses. A mix of residential and non-residential uses on individual lots is encouraged. Again, what do we have on our proposal? We have a commercial, we have a predominantly non-destination, non-car oriented retail and commercial establishment proposed directly along Colvin Avenue, and behind it, a complementary residential use. We nail the intent of the zoning of the district that this property was purposely changed to. We meet the intent and purpose of the zoning, we meet the intent and purpose of the comprehensive plan, we meet the intent and purposes of the USDO, and we meet the intent and purposes of the design standards. We are requesting the one waiver from the design standards, as I explained last month, because we think it makes for a more welcoming and more attractive living environment for the residents of our building. If the predominant access point and the congregation point is in the back of the building with a pedestrian access to Anthony Street, which is the entrance to the park. And I thank you for the opportunity.
If you want to run through that, that's just the revised site plan, which I think you saw last month. And this is a blow up, that's the revised landscape plan. The next sheet is a blow up of that area in red. That is the enlarged landscaping plan, done by a very skilled landscape architect. It adds significant trees, some shrubs, and some other things along the facade. And if you go to the next, this is actually a view from Anthony Street with the sidewalk coming out and the front of the building there in front, and there's one more rendering. This is an angular view looking from the corner of the parking, looking at how the building sits there. We think that these views show that we've paid good attention to the need of the site to be attractively landscaped. We're here to answer any questions Mr. Board may have. Oh, that's the treatments, that has. That actually shows the type of treatments in there, where we have walking areas, we have some exercise areas, we have some other picnic areas. They all have samples of the kind of things that will be there.
Thank you. Let's move to public comment so that we can react to both with the applicant.
Hi, my name is Michael Bryan. I am the president of the Upper Washington Avenue Neighborhood Association. And I want to start by saying I appreciate the work that you board members do, and I appreciate the demonstrated concerns for the association's community interest. I note that when Mr. Brick began his talk, he talked about Hyde Clark's letter, but he also commented that he was not sure of the neighborhood opinion. There's a reason for that. He never contacted us. Approximately a year ago, I was here at a zoning board meeting, the very first public forum on this project. I introduced myself to Mr. Hirschberg's known me for many years, and I remember the last planning board meeting we had, you folks questioned him about his interaction with the neighborhood association, and he said, well, I'm always available. I showed you a letter a couple of letters that we had written that were never specifically answered. But I can tell you as the neighborhood association, since that last meeting of your planning board that I attended, they have not contacted us. Mr. Brick said that they're asking for one waiver. Well, I read your staff report and it recites two waivers. And one is a waiver for the orientation of the building, which has changed since this whole project started. And the other is the approval of the primary pedestrian entrance. And I know the recommendation is you recommend approving the primary pedestrian entrance, but defer the waiver for the orientation of the building. That seems to me to be a little bit backward, because the prime pedestrian entrance, I think, is wholly dependent on how you situate the building on the lot. So I wouldn't even be looking at a waiver for the primary pedestrian entrance until you decide whether the orientation of the building is correct. And I know Mr. Brick went into a lot of talking about the USDO and how it was amended by not just Hyde Clark, but by the whole council. In fact, the USDO has been amended numerous times since it was initially passed. Wisely so, too. I don't think it was an effort to thwart the development. I think it was an effort to make Colvin Avenue, that section of Colvin Avenue, resemble the rest of Colvin Avenue. And I think that's why the USDO, since I helped write it as council member, I think the intent of the USDO was to streetscape Colvin Avenue, just like the rest of the streetscape. Their only attempt at streetscaping is to put a little freestanding store, of which there are many vacant stores in that area, and I also add. I don't think that was the real intent of streetscaping an apartment building. So the other point is, and I looked at the map.
Before we go,
Yeah.
you hit your 3-minute mark.
Oh, I did?
Yes.
Can I just make another comment?
I'll let you, in summation.
In summation, I would say, and I'm looking at the drawing of the location of the building and where the primary entrance is, and I note that it will enter right onto the parking lot of Westwood Hills Park. That parking lot is barely big enough to handle park use. Now, if the Westwood Hills parking lot is closer to the primary pedestrian entrance than a good part of the parking lot that they're building, the authorized parking lot, where do you think they're gonna park? And what is that gonna do? That is not gonna have a good community effect. It's going to basically impair the use of that park, which is used for Little League, it's used for tennis, it's used for gardening, it's used for all kinds of things. So I think
The community benefit has to be carefully looked at, and I think they ought to go back to the original plan, have the main pedestrian entrance on the other side of the building, which seems to me to be more in keeping with the code, which basically says that the orientation of the building should be basically situated to the main street that it's on, not to a parking lot owned by a park, which would most likely be occupied by cars of residents, and that isn't the intent of parking. And it's a very equitable park. We get users from all over the city, just like was the goal stated in the 2030 plan. So I would ask you to consider that, and I agree with I's letter. I think it's wise. I think it's very good research, and
Giving a
very good
lot of liberty.
I know, and I
A lot of
appreciate it.
liberty. This
I
is not a
appreciate it.
council meeting, sir.
And
Your
thank
time
you.
is up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, board members, do we have any questions? I've heard about this project a whole lot. Staff, your turn.
Alright, so, just to reiterate, comment by, Mr. O'Brien regarding the number of waivers and to make it clear to the applicant as well, so we had originally, determined that the one waiver be required for, let's go back to section, for the primary entrance, based on the review and, from Councilmember Clark's letter, he states a second section which really has the same intent, but also refers to the orientation of the building. So just to have everything clarified, we would state that tonight we can have the consideration of the primary entrance waiver, since that's what was noticed through the agenda. And that, based on that, we can have the consideration of the waiver for orientation at the following meeting as well. I think the concept here in reading through both of those sections, which come right after each other, are that the intent is really the same in having the building oriented. By part of its orientation, it means having primary pedestrian entryways facing a particular direction. If there's any questions on that before I go on to anything else?
If I could just add, Mr. O'Brien's correct, I was speaking in the singular, not the plural, because when I view our waiver request, it's a waiver request from applicable design standards. So we're requesting waivers from all design standards necessary, but we treat it as one waiver. It's one waiver request from all design standards necessary. So I just want to clear up that confusion.
Okay, we would have it as, we're presenting it as two actions that would be taken, so two separate waivers. But I think the point being that they're essentially intended to achieve the same purpose.
Yeah, that certainly seems to be the case. Were they requested at the same time, or how did they get separated?
Well, they're really one after the other. We, instead of citing every individual component of it, cite the overall section. But you could, as Councilmember Clark pointed out, you could cite the section just before it, which reiterates the same thing in terms of orientation versus primary pedestrian entryway. But again, really accomplishing or the intended goal being the same thing. Alright, so just going through then, when it comes to the waiver, there are review criteria established, and specifically what we have here. So I'll just go through them quickly in terms of why we staff believe that this meets the criteria. Go to the next slide, please. So the first one is really the character of the neighborhood. How does this impact it? Is it in line with the character of the neighborhood? Is it different? I think one of the main points here is that in many cases, for a similar situation as this, a waiver would not be required, but because there is a public right of way that used to be, or formerly, Anthony Street, that were still to be considered Anthony Street and not part of the park, the waiver would not be required. Understanding that through our interpretation, the need for the waiver arises, it still doesn't change the fact that area is still treated as a public right of way, and this building still has is still fronting along that area. The structure is going to be located behind another proposed building, the general retail building that will be fronting along Colvin Ave and is oriented towards the street. The proposed orientation and primary entrance of that building does achieve the intended goals of the design standards. Additionally, the orientation as proposed currently of the multi-unit building creates a more pedestrian-friendly environment with the addition of the path to the park. The property across the street, just as an example, 91 Colvin, which is the Asian food market, is an example of a property that does not technically meet the orientation and pedestrian primary entrance requirements, as the entryway actually faces to the side of the lot and not to the front of it. In this case, what are the benefits the applicant is attempting to achieve, and are there alternatives that they could utilize to get that same benefit? In this case, what we've heard tonight and what the applicant submitted through their application is that they're looking for the primary entry to face away from the self-storage facility and to have a larger area of usable green space and outdoor space. By moving the building forward, they've been able to place some recreational space, which they had showed us last time and early in tonight's presentation. If they were to move the building back to where it previously was, they would reduce the overall usable green and recreation space, which is required by the USDO. Additionally, it provides for circulation around the building, which was a request made by the city's fire department at a technical review committee meeting. Substantiality. This building does not front directly on Colvin Ave, but it does front on a former city street, which we believe meets the intent of the code. The waiver would not negatively impact access for residents or emergency services to the site. It has access through Colvin Ave and then a pedestrian path only that would be located off of formerly Albany Street. The proposed location of the building allows for greater separation from the existing public park, which were some of the initial comments made by the public and other city departments on seeing if there's more separation that could be made. By moving the building up, it does create a greater separation and retention of additional trees and vegetation. The waiver would not have an impact on stormwater or other public infrastructure on the site. And then noting that there's an abundant number of parking spaces that are located very close to the primary entryway, significantly closer than parking on Anthony Street would be. So I think that helps to limit the concern that people, specifically residents, would be parking along Anthony Street to access the building, if it would be a lot closer for them just to park on site next to the primary entryways. And lastly, self-created difficulty. I would say here that the difficulty is self-created, but acknowledging that there's a unique configuration of the parcel, its location adjacent to an existing building, which is now approved to be a self-storage facility. And then also just noting that the finding is relevant to the board's consideration, but it doesn't preclude the granting of a waiver in this case.
All right.
I guess and again, to sum it up, so we really have 3 approvals coming from the, 3 actions from the planning board. The overarching one is the development plan review. We're recommending deferral of that pending the issuance of final interdepartmental acceptance letters.
sorry, I was talking out loud.
And then the two waivers, one that we have before us tonight, the primary pedestrian entrance, and then deferral of the waiver for building orientation, which is similar to the primary pedestrian entranceway.
Alright. So let's go through our recommended actions. The first one, starting on a positive note. Is there a motion to approve the requested waiver for the primary pedestrian entrance?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Vanessa Gilliard and second, properly seconded, that we approve the requested waiver for the primary pedestrian entrance. Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. The second two, we will defer. Council, do we need to take that up as an action? Most deferrals are simply that, deferring our action.
Yeah, that's correct, you know.
Thank you.
If possible, could we request to be placed upon the next available agenda, provided we submit everything necessary to the planning?
Duly noted, but we will depend on our very capable planning team and staff to make that determination, but duly noted.
Understood, thank you.
I'm not saying to you, Brad?
Keyword provided that.
Absolutely, so thank you very much for this and.
Thank you all, see you soon.
Alright. 879 Madison Avenue. All sorts of nice stuff, conditional use permit, major development plan review, SECRA. Hope House.
Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Good, very good, thank you.
Alright, we gotta run through 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay. My name is Jack Daly, I'm the Director of Operations at Hope House.
I'm Kevin Conley, I'm the Executive Director of Focus.
Very nice.
879 Madison Ave was a former St. Rose building that we're going to move our current outpatient, you can see it there, from 747 Madison up to 879. We are not a methadone clinic, I always stress that, we do not distribute it, we are not methadone. We're going to take a building that's been really not used and convert it to, the first floor would be outpatient, the second floor would be 7 studio-style apartments for women in recovery that would be monitored by staff. Our normal business operation hours are Monday through Friday for the outpatient clinic, typically 8 to 4 p.m. with a couple night groups, typically on Monday, Wednesdays. Next slide. This is a rendering of the plot site that we had updated. We were still waiting for your arborist to tell us about the trees, because that's what we're kind of, waiting to, because we will follow the recommendations. What we are going to be doing is, and I can talk more about it when we get to that slide, but the point that buffers Hamilton Street, we're going to take about 5 feet, maybe 5.5 feet, cut that out, and we're going to put green space in there, greenery. That'll help with drainage as well as comply with putting green space in an existing spot, because it's very heavily all blacktop parking lot throughout that whole area. Next slide. This again is another rendering. It shows how we modified the parking spaces. In the past, they were at an angle, now we straighten them out, so we lost a couple parking spots, but it's a cleaner, less impact on that section, and it's easier for flow of traffic. And as you can see, we took out that last part to put in the greenery, as well as that will be a spot too where we'll move the snow towards that end, and we realize we probably will lose a spot or two during any kind of heavy precipitation. The next sections we talked about is, there was different questions on our waivers and whatnot. The parking lot's an existing structure with limited spaces. Adding additional green space will reduce parking spaces. Like we said, we're waiting for the arborist because they were asking us to put in trees in a couple spots. The only problem with that is there are existing trees, which we'll see in some slides. We don't want to impact the current neighbors, nor do we want to try to put trees within trees. That is the rear section. That is facing Hamilton Street.
Replace the existing chain link fence with a stockade fence on sides. We'll install shrubs and landscaping on the Hamilton Street side. As you saw on the left-hand side, if you're looking towards Hamilton Street, there's currently a stockade fence. We would put an adjacent one directly across, remove the chain link at the other end and make it a nice garden slash shrubbery type thing to make Hamilton Street look nicer for the neighborhood. Next, please. That chain link fence will be going. If you can see, the neighbor on the other side already has a stockade fence, so we're going to have the similar type of stockade fence as best we can match it, because that's been there a while, going straight down the other side. Next slide. Replace existing chain link fence with stockade. I know a lot of this is repeats, and installing shrubs. Next slide. This is the same thing. And then we talked about, it's the same thing, how we talked about parking lot as snow storage with landscape and shrubs. A lot of it seems to be repetitive, sorry about that, but it was the same type of issues created by that parking lot. Next slide. Installing a stockade fence will be consistent with what currently is there, and then landscaping will enhance Hamilton Street from the street view, and that's what the neighborhood was really kind of concerned with. Next slide. Alternatives considered: installing trees and adding green space would substantially reduce parking. If we tried, as I said before, to put any more trees in that area, because it's already a heavily congested parking lot, and there are two big trees on each side of I call it the finger heading towards Hamilton Street. We don't really know how we would be able to accomplish that. Next slide. Installing a stockade fence would not impact traffic, dust, noise, public services, odor, or drainage. It would just kind of enhance and hide from the neighbors on both sides, so it's more pleasing that they're not looking at a parking lot. It's not a self-created waiver, it's based on the limitations of the current site, because it is an existing structure with an existing parking lot. I know there was concerns about the lights. Lou, who couldn't be here tonight, asked me to explain. As you can see, those lights are movable that are currently on the building. I know some of the residents from the association complained about the lights kind of going in on Hamilton Street. They're very easily adjustable. There's like an arm on it. You can see it can go up or down. So we're going to work with our contractor to adjust them accordingly to stay in compliance. This is a proposed parking lot light. What it is we try to be energy consistent, energy efficient. We're talking about along the new stockade fence, potentially putting in solar lights every other post to kind of it will be energy efficient as well as not be glaring into the neighbor's property, because those are also adjustable. As you can see, it has a 90-degree adjustment. This is just one option. This is another aerial view of the site plan talking about the parking sites. We did remove, there was a tree right next to the entrance. When we talked to Brad and his team, they asked us to remove it because the tree wouldn't be able to survive in that area. It's like an alcove, nothing would survive there, so we can put back a space for handicap parking or something to that effect. As you can see, there's a little square in that lobby, that's for bike storage, because we were told we needed at least 3 indoor parking spots for bicycles. We are putting a bike rack and a bench out in front of the building, as well as a new tree, because there's one of the trees is kind of seen its life. We are going to replace that as well as put in another tree. Next slide. This is just another aerial view of the same site. The water and sewer we did get, and we did forward it to Brad's team. It's only going to increase the usage of water by 55 gallons, which is still below the use. By changing the use of the building, we had an engineering study, we did submit it. That's the proposed existing first floor. As you can see, it's almost like a racetrack style. Offices are in the middle. Excuse me. There'll be primary counselor suites, medical provider suites. It's very pass-through friendly. Next slide. Excuse me. Those are the proposed 7 units. They're studio style apartments that would house 7 girls in recovery, 7 ladies in recovery. And that is monitored by staff. That's one of the trees that needs to be modified because it's kind of struggling, it looks like, under the wires. The bike racks, as I said, we will put a new tree in, we will put in any kind of drainage that needs to be around any new tree. The bike racks, the bench, we've agreed to all that. That's just another view. That's just a view through the alleyway to Hamilton Street. That's another view, and you can see how the lights can be adjusted down. And then those are our hours of operation. And it says Monday through Friday, 7:30, the staff gets there at 7:30, the clients do not come in until 8 o'clock at the earliest, and 8, and then sometimes to 8 at night. That's typically Monday, Wednesday, when we run, if we run any type of night groups. This is just an overview. The estimated cost is $2 million. We're an OASIS certified program. Like I said, we're moving from 747 Madison, not methadone, to the first floor of 879. Currently, our supportive living apartments are located on Elizabeth Street. There's 3 apartments we rent from the city. It only houses 6 ladies. We wanted to get them over closer to our other programs. Women and Children is directly across the street at 890 Madison, which is another one of our programs. So we figure it just enhances the services to the individuals in recovery. Kevin attended the Pine Hills neighborhood and it was well received. He had good input. We met individuals from the Pine Hills Neighbor Association at the last meeting here, and their only concern was lights shining into the buildings from Madison Ave back to Hamilton Street. In addition to that, there was a church, the Chinese church is 2 parking lots over. We had an agreement with them. I forwarded it to Giselle. We agreed that they can use our parking lot for their services on, I think it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday type of nights, because we're not gonna interfere with that. So we've already kind of met with them and had that discussion.
They had that arrangement with the College of St. Rose.
Right, so we don't want to impede any of that. And I think Jasleen, I said your name wrong, I'm sorry. I was trying to talk quick, I know 10 minutes goes by fast.
You were right on time.
Okay.
Is there anybody, any comments on this one? You said you met with the neighborhood association before you came here tonight?
Yes, that's St. Rose,
They
that's
did.
the south. We did,
Yeah.
we did, yeah,
So,
seemed like a logical thing to do.
any questions from the board?
I just had a question on the lighting. Did you provide the photometrics to indicate like how the lighting works?
Yeah, they're on the one.
They're on the line, I'll double check that.
That's not my strong suit, that's Mark's.
Any updates to the exterior, to the facade? I know you were doing a lot on the inside, I saw that big number, and I'm not trying to increase your project.
No, we're gonna look to paint that building, part of it is brick and part of it, there's an area that's white, we're gonna paint that
When was it built again?
in the 70s.
Looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a typical boxy looking office structure, but it's perfect for what we need because it's like a blank slate. But
That's not coming from me.
I brought up a mural,
yeah, so
it'll definitely be freshly painted, that we can certainly agree to.
It's a challenge, everywhere that has the 1970s looking buildings. They didn't age well.
Store it now, Chris.
Huh?
Some of them
Store
are,
it now.
yeah, they're all messed up now. Some of them.
Alright, we have some actions, anything from staff on this one? Oh, yeah.
Just a quick review of the staff notes. It's an unlisted action, so a determination of significance is required for seeker. We received Albany County Planning Board recommendation. The project requires a conditional use permit. To reiterate, it's a major development plan review. And the dwelling multi-unit is the permitted use for the zoning district. The conditional use permit application is on the agenda tonight for action. Per the review, recent review of the project, the proposed updates may negate some need of some of the waivers. The site plans referred to in the presentation are yet to be submitted, so once we have those, we'll review them, we'll circulate them with the other departments, and those comments would then be communicated back to the applicant. As the applicant stated, they're moving their current clinic from 747 to Madison Avenue, which is in the MUNE zoning district, to 879 Madison, which is conditionally permitted in the at this location. The MUNE zoning district does not permit a medical clinic in the current USDO, per the current USDO. They also operate a women and children's residential program at the church across the street at 890, as the applicant mentioned. Under a long lease, this would provide access to those women as well. They provided documentation of their correspondence with the church next door, and their agreement with them to utilize it on weekends and for events.
Excellent. 3 actions, recommended actions. The negative declaration for secret, is there a motion from the body for a neg dec on the secret determination?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for a negative declaration for a secret determination. Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The second is for an affirmative vote on the conditional use permit. Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's been moved for the approval of the conditional use permit. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded. Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. And we will defer the development plan review for a subsequent meeting. Consent agenda sounds wonderful. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you
And
for
good
your
luck
time.
with your
Okay.
project. We certainly wish you well and appreciate the service that you provide to folks that are on the path of recovery. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our last one for tonight is 810 Madison Avenue.
Good evening,
Good evening.
back again. So we were here on January 9th. I should start with my name, Edward Beck. We were here on the board meeting at the 9th. There were some questions on the approval for the demolition of the house located at 810. There were some additional documents that were requested that were submitted, and we are back on this board meeting. We wanna go through the slides. So it's in the R2, the building it's a residential area that's owned by the church. Next slide. So the building is very old, it's 60+ years old. The first recommendation from planning was to get a engineered report on the estimation to rehab the building. The engineer report that was done by the engineer uses the RS means cost data as stated up there, and he came up with $410,491 to rehab the house, which is a significant amount of money to put into the house, which the church really doesn't have. So the church decided to pursue demolition of the house and make the area a green space for church patrons. As I said, they wanna remove the house, make green space, put playground equipment for the benches for the church to use during the summer months. The exterior in these photos, as you can see, the windows were boarded up to keep people out by the church. Prior to the church owning it, there was people that went inside, and you'll see on the next slides the damage that was done. The bottom right corner, you can see part of the roof that was easily accessed for a picture for this display that is rotten and leaking. The siding is damaged and buckled, needs a full replace. Next slide. The biggest concern they have is the foundation. As you can see, the first picture there on the left, part of the foundation is actually collapsed on where the stairs coming down into the building. The other two photos, they're hard to see, but they are bowed outward. So to repair that foundation, the house would actually need to be jacked up. Foundation removed, look at the condition of the footings, and pour a new foundation. That's a substantial amount of cost to do that. Engineers don't think that the building would actually hold itself up until we did all the structure up above. Next photo, or slide. So in the interior, you can see some of the damage that was done prior to the church obtaining the property by, I call them quote unquote squatters, come in and had removed a lot of the copper pipe through the house and just damaged it. There's no insulation, as you can see up in the upper right hand corner in the exterior walls, so all of the walls on the interior would need to come off, insulated, checked. There's signs of termite damage and rot from water from the roof leaking. Next slide, please. As you can see, in the center photo, there's a spot where the roof was leaking. Down on the second floor to the first floor, where the floor is all rotted, the joists are rotted. The other photos are damaged that was just there when they bought it. The stairs need complete rehaul. They're broken. The balusters are gone. It's in disrepair. Next photo, please. The HVAC system needs a full upgrade. The radiators were removed prior to the church obtaining the property. The furnaces were flooded. I guess the basement was flooded for many years after the previous owners vacated the property and moved out of state. The air conditioning system is not up to code or working at all. Next slide, please. Again, here's some more photos of the basement. The basement stairs, as you can see, are nowhere near up to code. The Bilko door would need to be removed, new steps put in. Excuse me, the sanitary line is rusted and deteriorating, so that would need to be replaced. All of the plumbing, all of the sanitary lines, the water lines, as you can see in the right-hand side, they're all damaged. A lot of them are missing up through the house. As I said, it was copper that was removed. All new electrical will be needed throughout the whole place. Next slide, please. So that's why we are here trying to financially help the church with this property to demolish. And there was a comment made on the 1-9 through a couple of people about the intent of the church buying the property, and the intent was to demo it. The intent was never to demo the property. They own 3 or 4 houses right alongside of 810. I think it's 808. I have it here, I'm sorry. Somewhere. They have 808A and 808B that they bought, and 824 that they have bought over the years and are currently renting those properties out. That was the intent of this house, but with the cost the renovations, it's not financially in their favor to do so.
Any questions from the board? Alright, let's go through staff recommendations.
Alright, so the property is currently improved with a 3-story, roughly 3,000 square foot driveway and parking area to the rear. Consists of one parcel, which is approximately 0.09 acres. It's not listed and we're eligible on the National Register or as a historic property. The building was originally constructed around 1900, appears to have been built as a residential use from some of the records we could gather. It was most recently used as a residential structure and professional office for a law firm. The building has been vacant for approximately 9 years. It's located within the MUNE zoning district, which is to and the purpose is to provide for moderate density housing options, limited mixed-use development. The 800 block of Madison, where this property sits, is comprised mostly not sure if there was a copying error here, but it's consisted of a lot of converted residences. It's got a strong streetscape and street wall of adjacent properties that are pulled up to the same building line as this one, and adjacent properties across the street that are a mix of commercial and residential. The property was cited in 2022 for several code violations, as well as a failure to register the building as vacant and to maintain the building. The property was registered as vacant in September of 2023 and subsequently sold to the church on 110, or subsequently sold to the church. The church owns the adjacent properties at 820, 808A, 808B, 806 Madison, and 453 Gate Street. The planning board should take into consideration the review criteria that are established for demolition review. And as part of that, the next several items kind of address the review criteria in that regard. The comprehensive plan, how does it impact our evaluation here? Comprehensive plan does call for the stabilization and reuse of existing structures where possible. The applicant, are there other redevelopment options available for the site? The applicant has not proposed a redevelopment of the site other than, or rather to construct a new building or new structure, but they have proposed to use it as a green space or a small playground area associated with the church. Alternatives considered were not really provided. However, there are options such as the applicant sought to sell the property to someone who might be willing to stabilize and repair the building, or donating it to the land bank, or other adaptive reuses of the property that might make it more economically feasible to balance the costs associated with stabilizing and rehabbing the property. Certainly recognize that the building is in need of major repairs, likely a full gut rehab as we saw. However, it's not condemned, and the building and regulatory compliance department is aware of the structure. There's not an intent for it to be condemned at this point. A look at the building would say that it's in a better state than many that we've had undergo full gut rehab and stabilization. And then I think a major component here is the difficulty faced by the current owner and applicant, self-created or not. In this case, the owner bought the property, and per their letter that was submitted to the planning board, they did not do an interior inspection of the property. and they didn't obtain a estimated rehab or repair for the property to really have a full scope of what those costs would be. So then to suggest that the only alternative now is to demolish it seems to be brought on by the applicants not having gone through those processes beforehand. If you go to the next slide.
Recommended
Is that, okay. I guess, any questions on the notes before go to the recommended action?
I have a question. So who owned the property prior to the church owning the property? Was it a private citizen or was it an agency that maybe got a hold of the property?
I forgot the name exactly with it, but I believe it was the law firm, yeah. The Haddad law firm.
Oh, so there was a, okay. Okay,
Yeah, so it was law firm on the first floor, and then I believe the other were residential.
got it.
And this is not anywhere near adjacent to a local historic district?
It's not in a historic district. I'd have to refresh my memory by looking at a map to see exactly how close the next
I know.
historic district is.
It's not.
I'm able to pull it up quickly. We can pull it up and share it.
One block to the
One block to
east
the
is
east,
the
right?
Madison Avenue,
Corridor.
where the historic district is, I don't know the name of the district.
There is a historic district map, right?
Yeah.
Well, the city is also surveying the Pine Hills district for eligibility this year or next year, so
It's in the works.
potentially National Register District could encompass this area or others, but and I think the importance to us is more than the individual buildings, the streetscape,
Yeah.
you know, it is building on the end, but it would create a rather large gap in that streetscape to take that down. You know, city also needs buildings in areas that are, you know, salvageable for housing and other purposes, so it'd be our, I mean, it would certainly be our preference to see the building rehabilitated.
And utilized.
Whether that's feasible, that's for all of you to decide, I guess, but based on our analysis and speaking with our building department, it sounds like it potentially so.
And here's just the map, show it with the hash marks there
I see,
are
it's
the
just very
historic
close.
overlay.
Yeah.
May I request permission to speak or not at this time?
Certainly.
Thank you, everyone, for taking this matter into consideration and for allowing us a second meeting. We would like to
Your
respond.
name and address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Dahlia Sadek. I am a board member on the church. I would like to respond to some of the comments that were made about the church. The first comment that was made was that we did not try to rehab it. That is, false. We have made several estimations, several renovation estimates on the building. It all came out very high, to the point that at first we didn't even request any written estimates because they were just, you know, something the church could not afford. We got a structural engineer to take a look at the foundation. The foundation is buckling, it's bowing, there are pieces that have fallen. Several contractors actually said, you know, if you think of renovating this, we would not be doing it because we feel it's a safety hazard to our workers because this building may collapse. The structural engineer confirmed this, that the foundation is not repairable, it needs to be replaced. There are several other parts of the building that are not repairable and need to be replaced. These were things behind walls. When they made the estimates, they showed us some severe deterioration, structural damage, water damage, termite damage. And the structural engineer did deem it condemnable indeed, and that is in the written report that was submitted to the planning board. The costs were submitted for renovation as well. I believe the gentleman mentioned that the costs were not given. Detailed costs were given to renovate the property. We were very interested in renovating the property. We have 4 other properties that are nearby that we have renovated and are now renting. All of them have, all the necessary licenses to be rented. We were about to do the same thing with this property when we were surprised and shocked to find that it was not repairable. When we bought the property, the owner told us that it was repairable, that there was some damage. We had bought neighboring properties that were also built around the same time, and they did have some damage, but they were repairable. Nothing that we couldn't manage, nothing that we couldn't handle. This structure is unsafe. It is unsafe for the community. It is unsafe to be left at as is.
Steve,
And
we've reached the 3 minutes.
Okay.
It's summation.
In summation, we feel that if this property was repairable, we would have been very interested in repairing it. We have made several estimations to try to get it repaired. They all lined up together and they all supported each other. 2 of these cost estimates were sent to the planning board. It is not a historic district. We checked on that. And we do want to mention that this building is located in the middle of a parking lot. So if it is demolished, it's not really going to have a bare space there. It's going to be a nice grass area in that location. It is separate from the other buildings, other residential buildings that are around it. So it would not look off, or it would not cause like a gap in the middle of the street.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? I was gonna say, cause I definitely have one, but if you want, I will
I
refer to
think
you.
yours is probably the same as mine, cause I'm concerned about the fact that there was a purchase of a property sight unseen, and I'm using that in air quotes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I understand if it was coming from an agency, some type of some type of auction, that's usually the case, but this sounds more like a private sale. And I don't understand, you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
sort of feels like you guys got yourself in this situation because you didn't do the due diligence that needed to be done to make sure you're getting a property that was sound. So I just would like to know a little bit more about that.
Makes sense. I totally understand your question. The other 4 properties that the church purchased were also purchased sight unseen. We had no reason to distrust the owner. The owner was a lawyer who had been there for a while.
No, I know Ed.
Oh, yeah.
I know Ed.
Okay, he had some medical problems, moved away.
Yeah.
We had great dealings with this gentleman. He gave us an easement so we'd be able to park on the asphalt there. So members of the congregation would park there for church services. He wanted to get rid of the building. Mainly his children wanted him to get rid of the building. So instead of putting it on the market, he asked the church, would you like to purchase it since you're already, using the easement for your congregation to park there? And he wanted to save some selling costs. We were interested. We had no reason to distrust the gentleman. He did tell us it needs some repairs, but he said it was repairable. Because we had a good relationship with him, there was no need for us not to hop on it, especially since he's recommended that we buy it at the sum of $178,000 sight unseen. He was not there to open it up for us, and again, since we had already purchased 4 other properties sight unseen.
Did you purchase them from him or did you?
No, from different individuals.
I'm still stuck in my question. I get what you're saying,
Yeah.
and yes, Ed is a very nice guy, I know he's aging, I'm just still, you know, I'm concerned that you bought a property, sight unseen, you're now seeing it and seeing the condition that it truly is in, and now we're saying we can't do anything with it because it's going to cost too much.
Right.
And that's what I'm hearing, and it sort of puts us between a rock and a hard place, because as a planning board, we wanna have our neighborhoods, part of our mission is to have the continuity of our neighborhoods. And, you know, if again, other circumstances, I think my opinion would be different. But you're putting us in a space where it may already have to be down, so would it be something that goes on the city's rolls and then come down? How does that work? But I'm just concerned that you purchase something without having any type of inspection done. And now you're asking us to put something, I'm not, you know, and you purchased it for a decent amount of money, it wasn't, you know, a fire sale.
Right.
And you trusted that it would be in condition that you can do something with it, you had no estimates, no nothing, that's concerning for me. And it may not even be relevant, it's a red flag for me.
I do want to mention that we did try to sell the property to people who would renovate it, and it just
They're not
didn't.
gonna touch it.
Yeah, it didn't move forward. We did not want to conceal the damage, we did not want to hide it, we felt that it would be dishonest to do so. So, you know, with the damage there, and when people got their own estimates, they realized this is not repairable, even if we put a decent amount of money into it.
Have you considered reaching out to the land bank to see if there was an opportunity for them to restore it and find a buyer for it?
No, actually, the structural engineer recommended that avenue not even be gone through because he deemed it condemnable, and he said it was in such a bad state
Yeah,
that.
but they have their own, they have structural engineers too that they
Right.
work with as well that can also make a determination too
Okay.
as well. And sometimes they're aligned and sometimes it's a matter of a risk, right?
Right, right.
So that would be my question, is that what the city needs in parcels that maintain.
Yeah.
And your church is beautiful, I walk by it all the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I see you have a very vibrant community there.
Right.
It's a great asset to the city, but having a hole in that part of the city with a green space, as you propose,
Right.
is not, you know, while you may need the green space, question lies like, will you continue to park there, will it expand, you know? So in my opinion, I think it's a very unfortunate circumstance to be in. I do wonder, you know, why there wasn't a review of this parcel prior to understand the structural needs, and it's come to it after the fact. But I think it's an unfortunate situation for you to be in as a church, especially if it's a successful church.
Right.
And a vibrant church.
Right.
But what the city does need is rehab and parcels that maintain
Right.
integrity, right?
Yes, and we've been maintaining 4 other properties that we rent out, and you know, we continually maintain them, so we understand what it means to be able to you know, contribute good rental spaces and good looking buildings in the community. We've never had any citations or any violations on those buildings, and I'm sure you could, you know, check the records. So the intention for this property was the same, and since it was built around the same year, we had no idea it would be in this condition.
Have you thought to rebuild? Have you gotten any estimates of tearing it down and building a new structure so
Yes.
not have the hole?
Yes, we did.
Sir, if you're to come up, except for
I was one of the church board there, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we did. We got a proposal to have it demoed, and then they said the rebuilding of the property would cost $420,000. That is not a sum that the church has. It would mean, the total cost on the building would be close to $600,000, and
And what would be the cost to put in this green space? Cause you're already $175,000 in the hole,
right,
right off the bat, plus whatever the cost to demolish.
Right.
And then to build in whatever space. So
Yes.
what would those total costs be?
So the cost to demolish is, Ed, I think you could chime in here, it would be $42,835 to demolish the building. The landscaping and putting in the green space would be rather minimal. It's only gonna cost $1,750 actually to put in some topsoil and either grass seeds or sod there, so it's a price that the church can afford.
You said $1,750 as in $1,750?
Yes.
I think that's low, but okay.
It would just be topsoil and grass seed.
Yeah,
for
but
which
when
we
you
have
have putting any trees, that would have to go through us, I believe, am I wrong in saying that? What that would look like?
Depends on the scope, I mean, if it's just fill, then probably not.
Okay.
Any further questions?
The only thing, just please, we're really worried about the safety of the congregation. To be honest with you, that's what brought us here.
And the community
The
and the
foundation, sorry,
No, I was adding to
Yeah.
and the neighborhood
this is the
as well.
only reason we are here. The people start complaining, like they have some anxiety that the house may start behave in a way that
Might endanger
Yeah.
the neighbors and the
Yeah.
people that are there.
So we told them we'll do our best to take fast action and make everyone feel safe when he comes and park his car over there. Especially, we are really in a good schedule with church services.
Gotcha. So, planning staff, we've gone and done our own independent reviews, the city has, I mean, if they're saying the building's
Condemnable.
yeah, about to fall down on people, I'm assuming we've already done our own.
The building
independent-
department has reviewed it, right?
Yeah, we didn't have a structural engineer report on it, but yes, the building department has concluded that it's not condemnable at this point.
Are you willing to donate the property if someone were willing to take on the project of fixing it?
We would have to consult the other board members. But I just wanna mention that we did have a structural engineer and more than one.
No, we understand that part, I'm
Yeah.
asking about on our side.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and I'm not, nothing against your structural engineer, I don't know.
More than one.
I was gonna say, like, a lot of structural engineers will write a letter for a lot of buildings that they need to be demolished, so we've seen that repeatedly, and, that's why we kind of consult our own sources to a certain degree.
Absolutely, absolutely, and please feel free to do so. Please, I would, like to kindly ask that a structural engineer look at the foundation before you deem it livable or repairable. I don't think it is a safe property to hire out to a contractor to try to fix without a structural engineer making sure they're taking care of the required structural reinforcements for that building.
Yeah, I think if staff can, I know buildings have been there, but if we do have a structural engineer that can take a look at it, I don't know what our options are, to you guys.
They, it's a registered vacant building, so I believe that's a part of the annual application.
Right.
What our building department said is the building does not need to be demolished, so it's not going to fall over, essentially. So,
Okay.
And they're code enforcement.
If it was gonna fall over, there would be an immediate order to demolish the building.
Right, I would assume that.
I suppose they could go out and check that again to ensure that's not the case, but typically we don't provide structural engineering inspections that are provided to us for review.
May I make a statement for the safety of the people? I would recommend that a structural engineer from the city of Albany take a look at the foundation again. Even if we do decide to donate the building, there's some excessive damage there that really needs to be looked at. I just wanna mention, we had no intention whatsoever of demoing this building when we bought it, so.
We understand.
Yeah.
We understand that part. We can't deal in intent, we're gonna dispose of and adjudicate this
Yeah.
here. We certainly appreciate you coming in and having your presentation today. We've well exceeded our
There is
our
another
protocols.
idea, I'm sorry, there is
Yeah.
another idea I would love to share it with you. So one doctor from the congregation said, we can make it like basketball for our kids and our youth to enjoy over there. And be honest with you, we are trying to minimize the cost. We spend a lot of money and we felt, well, it's time really to make a right decision.
Yeah, I'm going to be frank here, you made a bad investment and now we're here.
Yes,
I don't know, I think with this property, we would have been here somewhere or another because of its condition.
Mhm.
But it's now fallen on your lap as to why we're here and we're trying to figure out, again, our duties are to the not just to you guys as the owner,
Right.
but also to the neighborhood as a whole.
Absolutely.
And to the city and trying to make sure that whatever decision we make, cause it doesn't just affect you, it affects others in the neighborhood as
Right.
well.
Right.
And and then that's it, that's all I got.
We're gonna advance the meeting to the staff recommendation.
Yeah, sorry.
All good.
The recommendation for the proposed demolition would be a denial. This is based on the previously mentioned findings and staff notes for the criteria of demolition review within the USDO.
Absolutely. Couple things before we move to action. Obviously, whatever the outcome of our action on the application is today, I don't think it necessarily reflects the board's or the planning staff's sentiment as to the scenario that you're in. I could say based off the limited and short conversation that we had here tonight, probably need to think about this problem a little bit more broadly than we might have approached it with a simple demo app. I think we look forward to you and your board and your professionals being able to package something and share with our very capable planning staff at a future date. Thank you for the piece, for the formality. Is there a motion for denial of the demolition review application?
Second, motion.
We need a primary before we second. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded to deny this demolition review application. Is there any readiness? Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Those abstain? Motion carries.
I'm sorry, sir, may I just ask one more question?
We can have a conversation at the conclusion
Okay,
of the planning board meeting.
okay,
As we move through the very end of our agenda, I wanted for the record to recognize that we received from the planning staff the deficiency list and notification of local action parts for, what we got this one, 257 and 259 South Pearl Street for the Capital City Rescue Mission Expansion. Wanted to be on the record that we did receive that information tonight as part of tonight's meeting, so thank you for that. Is there any further business? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Without an objection, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.